Welcome to the video. Today I'm going to do a contest entry. I think it's a contest entry, but I'm not so sure. That was set up by Steve at All the World's a Stage, and the challenge or the contest is to recommend 3 covers of Bob Dylan songs, good ones of course. And then because it's kind of been Mother's Day in the USA in the last week or two, and it was Mother's Day back in the UK in March, I think, but of course every day is Mother's Day, isn't it? We've got to say something about our mothers as well. So I'm going to recommend 3 outstanding covers of Bob Dylan songs. And the first one comes from this album, Freewheelin' Bob Dylan, I think about 1963. And this is, of course, if you're a Bob Dylan fan, you'll know this album. It's full of classics. Blowin' in the Wind, Girl from the North Country, The Magnificent Masters of War, Don't Think Twice, It's All Right, others as well, of course, and A Hard Rains Are Gonna Fall. So my first recommendation is Bryan Ferry's version of A Hard Rains Are Gonna Fall. Now this is from Ferry's 1973 covers album, and of course we all know Ferry from Roxy Music, and this album kind of reeks of Roxy Music. He does his crooning bit here and there, but the version of A Hard Rains Are Gonna Fall is full on Roxy Music. Okay, instead of sax, it kind of runs with violin, but it's got Paul Thompson on drums from Roxy, and it drives along like an early Roxy Music track as well. It was a big hit in the UK. You'll probably know it, but it's one of my 3 favourite Bob Dylan covers, and it's probably my favourite Bryan Ferry song, Bryan Ferry performance on record, anything that he's done. So Hard Rains Are Gonna Fall is the first recommendation. Number 2 comes from this album, Blonde on Blonde, 1966. Now I picked up this album, as a latecomer to Dylan, to be honest with you. I mean, Dylan had his kind of commercial peak before I was even starting to buy records. So I bought this album. I think my first Dylan album was Planet Waves, and that was only because it was being sold off cheap, because I think it was over-ordered by the record shop, or multiple record shops. But anyway, I bought this about late 1980s, and I played it from time to time. Didn't quite get it, a bit more ramshackled, in the 1970s I was kind of big into this like slick rock and progressive rock in the early 70s in particular, and this was a little bit ramshackled for my taste at the time, but I gradually came to enjoy it, but it really hit home to me when in the early 1980s there was a wave of Americana kind of country rock bands started to come to the UK. Bands like Green on Red, who I saw, the Long Riders, good album too. The wonderful album by Los Lobos, How Will the Wolf Survive, fantastic title track on this, wonderful. But the one that covers the Bob Dylan song is Jason and the Scorchers. Now this is called Fervor. It was an EP, although I think it's got 7 tracks. I think what happened was that EMI released it in the UK and insisted on the Bob Dylan track appearing on this, and it opens it, and it's absolutely Sweet Marie from Blonde on Blonde. Now, Jason and the Scorchers, Americana, country, yes, but I think they were kind of labelled as cowpunk. Country vibe, undoubtedly, but with a punk sensibility. And absolutely, Sweet Marie is fantastic. It's out of this world. It is high on energy, fully committed. It's absolutely wonderful. And there's a moment in the song where Jason Ringenberg, the singer, sings the line that starts 6 wild horses, and it's just such a thrill. It's just wonderful, and the song just kind of goes roaring to its climax. It's fast, furious, full of fire. Now, in comparison, the version on Blonde chugs along quite nicely, but this one is the one that I go back to time and time again. fantastic version. And finally, my third recommendation of a Bob Dylan cover comes from, originally appeared on The Times They Are A-Changing. The 63, another 63 album. I should know this. You'll know if you're a Bob Dylan fan. You'll know. I can't be bothered to take it out. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, the song and the album that it appears on is With God on Our Side by the Neville Brothers, and the album is Yellow Moon, released in 1989. Now, I didn't know anything about the Neville Brothers when I bought this album. I bought it because it's produced by Daniel Lanois. And Daniel Lanois, as you'll know, is very big on atmospherics. He's got this really atmospheric guitar style, very spare. It's all about the atmosphere, and also appearing in collaboration on this album is Brian Eno, who provides his typical keyboard atmospherics as well. And they combine on this version of With God on Our Side with the singing of Aaron Neville. Now, Aaron Neville, you may have come across, you might be a big fan, but he kind of came to prominence in the early 1960s with this New Orleans Southern Soul hit called Tell It Like It Is. And he continued to produce music throughout the 60s and 70s, pretty obscure, not mainstream stuff. It didn't really, he wasn't big on hits. And I don't know much about the Neville Brothers, to be honest with you, other than the New Orleans band. They were producing some albums ahead of this one, but this was a major breakthrough. And the version With God on Our Side is incredible. It is 6.5 minutes of almost, well, in fact, a cappella vocals from Aaron Neville. So that's him on the top right here. I think he's considered to be a bit of a badass, but he has an angelic voice. Incredible. Sings in a high register, truly angelic, and he's in the style. And he sings almost unaccompanied. What you get in the background here is all those Lanois, Eno atmospherics, keyboard wash, low register, almost imperceptible bass. It's just rumbling along at the bottom, and then as the song gradually goes on and on and on, you start to hear a little bit of the tinkling from Daniel Lanois' guitar. The other thing to say about the vocals, there's kind of an echo and a vibrato in the vocals, so it is very otherworldly. And although it's 6.5 minutes and it goes as slow as a glacier, it's utterly compelling. It's riveting track. The bonus, if you buy this magnificent album, is that you get a version of the Ballad of Hollis Brown from the same Bob Dylan album, and that is also superb. Absolutely superb. Great album from a wonderful band. So those are my 3 recommendations. A little bit about my mother. Well, I speak to my mother twice a week, along with my dad, on a Skype call, which usually lasts about an hour or longer. Just chewing the fat, see how things are up in the northeast in Newcastle, how the rest of my family's getting on. And every Christmas I drive up the 200 miles to Newcastle, pick up my mum and dad and bring them down here for a few days or a week over the Christmas period. And when we get here, my mother always requests the album by who she calls Pinchy Nose, With God on Our Side. Bob Dylan, of course. And this is the album she wants me to play, Christmas in the Heart. She really likes this album, even though my dad hates it. Even though their musical tastes are easy listening and big band music from the 40s, my mother likes this album and I love it. It is so much fun. Possibly my favourite, well, other than Time Out of Mind, of course, my favourite later years Bob Dylan album. It's absolutely fantastic. So there you go. 3 great recommendations, plus a recommended Christmas album, and a little bit about my mother. So thanks for watching, and thanks Steve at All the World's a Stage for the suggested topic of this video. I hope you enjoyed, Steve, and anyone else who may be watching. So I'll see you next time. Bye bye.